going to get dusty
Okay.
because it's unfiltered air. So probably once a year you just need to give those a bit of a wipe down with a damp cloth or something. It's a little bit dusty inside. I recommend you buy a set of these.
Okay.
They're brilliant for cleaning the dust off the air valve. They're just soft bottle brushes from. I got these on eBay for £5 or something. They're just brilliant for cleaning the air valve. Right, so this is going to be our main controller when it's finally wired up. So the moment it's just gone to sleep, so that'll be what you see on a normal daily basis. To wake it up, if you just press any of these buttons, probably the bottom one, just wakes it up. So that is your main front screen. So we have 4 columns. The first one, you'll never use, that is a very, very low ventilation rate. The only time you would use that is if the house is empty, nobody living here, up for sale or something. And it's just a very low ventilation rate, just to keep a little bit of ventilation through the house. So you still need ventilating even if nobody's living here. But also the machine itself needs ventilation as well. Now it's in winter, one side of the heat exchanger is a warm, damp environment. So if you turn the airflow off for any significant length of time, really sort of talking months, not a few days or a couple of weeks, you could get mould growing inside the machine as well. So even though the air is filtered, it's not filtered down to microbe level. You know, it's filtering dust. So any sort of microbes or whatever from dead skin will find its way into the machine.
Okay.
So the first bar, you'll never use that unless you're selling the house. The second bar, think of that as being holiday setting. So that's what I refer to, or we refer to in the industry as fan speed 1. So it's 0, 1, 2 and 3. So 1, holiday mode. You've gone away for a fortnight, nobody's in the house, you can drop the ventilation if you can remember to do it. The next one up, but I'll show you how to change the fan speed as well. So press the button with the hand symbol, then you can turn the knob and you can adjust the fan speed. So you can hear the fans just speeding up now. So that is your normal everyday running speed.
Okay.
So that's up here on your report as fan speed 2. This particular machine is a bit confusing. It's got four speeds on here. Most of them only have 3.
Okay.
The top one, to change it again, I've got to press the hands button. That's boost. So that's what you can use for your cooking.
Showers?
You'll probably find that once everything's settled down, you won't need to boost it when you're showering.
Okay.
Because the air in the house will be relatively dry compared to a traditional house. So when you have a shower, yes, you're going to produce some moisture, that's unavoidable, but the air in the house should act a little like a sponge and absorb that moisture fairly quickly. So the minute you open your bathroom door and let some of that moist air out, it'll be absorbed into the air in the house.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect you to need to boost the ventilation just for showering. The only time you will need to boost it is for cooking odours.
Okay.
Uh,
So we've got a downward extractor here, haven't we?
Yeah.
That sucks it down.
So
into
that is your first line of defence.
Okay.
And the
For
fan,
the grease and the.
fan in your extractor will be as powerful, if not more powerful, than the fans in here.
Okay.
That's doing the whole house.
So you don't want them
extractor.
fighting against each other, do you?
No, you won't get that anyway.
Yeah.
If you think of the MVHR extraction, even on boost, it's still relatively low compared to a cooker hood.
Okay.
The only the difference between each of those fan speeds is about 30% air volume. So it's not like a cooker hood where you turn it up to boost and it doubles the fan speed. You're only just turning the flow rate up by 30%
Okay.
for each notch. So even if you put your hand in front of that now, you'll struggle to feel the airflow. It is probably, it might only be 20% of what your cooker hood can do. Okay, that's the main front screen. So I'll just explain these buttons. So the bottom one is a back arrow, so that takes you back one step from wherever you are in the menus. The next one up is a timed program, so press that. We can set up a schedule. I can't just remember how to do it without going through the manual. But the only time you would use that would be if the house was unoccupied during the daytime on a regular basis. So if everyone's out 9 till 5, you can program the machine to change fan speed, to probably drop down to fan speed 1 if there's nobody in the house. If you've got somebody in and out, then you won't necessarily need to use that.
Is it currently on a program?
No.
No.
And I can't remember how to program it without going through the manuals.
Okay.
So we're in the menus now, so to go back a level, just press the back button. This is back out. The hand button is manual operation, you've already seen changing the fan speeds.
Yep.
And the top button shows a little clock but with intermittent segments. That is temporary boost. So that is the button you will press if you're wanting to boost the ventilation when you're cooking.
Okay.
So press that, and then you turn the knob, so we're on full speed, and it says 11:22, so that is half an hour from now.
Okay.
So it's preset at half an hour, you can't boost it for any longer than that. So that's what you would use it when you wanted to boost for cooking.
Okay.
Once it gets to 11:22, it'll drop back down to fan speed 2 again, I think.
Okay.
So you don't, once you've set it, you don't need to remember half an hour later to turn it off.
But if I'm cooking for an hour and a half,
Well, bear in mind you're only really using it for removing cooking odours.
oh right, okay,
Your cooker hood is your main line of defence.
right,
If you wanted to boost it for longer, I think you can do, but then you have to go into start drilling down into the menus. I'll have a look at that now. So those are the buttons. Right, so to get into the menu structure then, we press the button, and we've got 3 sub-menus. Device information is information only. HRU's heat recovery unit. So it is possible to have different machines connected to this controller. You've only got the one. Press the button again, and these are all the various commissioning settings, which I think you've probably seen already, haven't you? So the first, where? So this is just giving the airflow from the machine. To air pressures. So your supply system pressure is 28 Pascal, which is very low. So that means that fan isn't having to work hard at all. The extract is a little higher at 47, probably just keeps fluctuating a little bit. Again, that's very low. We're usually trying to design somewhere between 40 and 60 pascals. The extract pressure is probably a little bit higher because it's having to suck through that filter.
right.
Bypass state at the moment is open, so in other words the machine is it's currently in bypass operation, so that means it must be quite warm in here.
Yeah, it says 23 degrees exhaust temperature and
Yeah,
20 degrees in, so it should be cooling the house a little bit.
So we're trying to cool at the moment, but its inlet temperature is 20.5, so we've only got a couple of degrees temperature difference. You're not going to do much cooling with a 2 degree temperature difference. Obviously in the middle of the night that will be lower outside hopefully, so you get a little bit more cooling capacity, but don't by any means think of this as being air conditioning at all.
No.
What I normally tell people is that think of the summer bypass as there to not make the situation any worse if
Yeah.
you're getting too warm.
Yeah.
If you're already too warm, it's not going to stand a chance at cooling the house down. Because if you're too warm, it's because your floors are warm, your furnitures are warm, your walls are warm, the whole structure is warm. Moving a little bit of air past it isn't going to cool it down. This system is really replacing the little slot trickle vents that you would see in traditional windows, the little slider.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect opening one of those in your bedroom to cool your bedroom.
Yeah, that's a good illustration. Yeah.
So this is not much different. It's a lot better than a little slider in your window because it's controlled.
Yeah.
The slider in your window is relying on wind pressures to some degree. If it's very still outside,
And you lose all your heat.
you're not
You
going
do that.
to get much air going through the slot vent
No.
anyway, and you lose your heat. Okay, so there's various other bits of information in there. You have a play with that one I've done if you want. So we'll just go back one level. Back again. So the next one down is basic settings. So all you've got in here is
Oh yeah, I went through that. Clock and date. Yeah.
The backlight is the brightness of this screen. If it's not in a bedroom, it's fine at full brightness. You will have to change the clock twice a year.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that.
Only really if you've got a time schedule.
Yeah.
Otherwise-
It does change at 5 o'clock though. Something happens at 5 p.m. It goes on like a boost setting. So I don't know whether it's pre-programmed, and that was factory setting. It was pre-programmed
Yeah,
on
unless it's just
P1, I think.
maybe.
So
then,
I didn't
yeah.
put it on that, but I don't know how we
didn't
take it
think
off that.
was.
Okay. Because just then when you did the temporary boost, first of all it said till 5 p.m. and then it did half an hour. So I think something happens at 5 that we'll work it out. It just seemed to boost in it. You hear
Right.
it go up.
Have you noticed it just on one day or several days?
No, every day. We've only had it on for a few days, but I was standing next to it at 5 yesterday, so that's when I heard it suddenly go up to a fan speed. I think to the top speed.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so it's doing something at 5, and it stops at
I
10.
can't hear the fans.
It's 5 to 10 p.m.
But if it was a temporary boost, it would only do it for half an hour.
No, we haven't done any boosting. This is just all I did is turn it on and change the clock and the date.
Okay.
So I think
Well,
we'll have a look at the
we'll come back to
programs.
that
Yeah.
and we'll see what that
Yeah.
might. So clock and date in there. That's all there is in there. You can. So key lock is if you have problems with kids tampering with
Yeah.
it, you can lock the controller. So back from there. Right, install the settings. If you ever go in here, be careful.
Yeah.
This is all the settings I've put in here now. There, and you could change them if you wanted to. So we're going to that. Heat recovery unit again. Device settings. Don't ever select factory
No.
settings.
Wouldn't want to do
it
that
wouldn't be a
accidentally.
disaster if you did, because all the settings that you would need to put it back are in the commissioning report anyway.
Oh, great.
So it won't be a
Okay.
total disaster, but that will put it back to how it arrived.
Okay.
So device settings. Press the button again. And it takes a few moments to do this. It's loading the settings from the machine into the control panel.
Okay.
All of the commission settings are held in the machine, not in here.
Okay. That's good. So if we have to disconnect to put it on the wall or lose the settings.
So those are 4 airflows. So I've set those to the design levels. So on speed 2 it's 135 cubic metres an hour. This is capable of 325. So on your normal running speed, it's just ticking away nicely.
Okay.
You'd never want to run one of these things
Full whack.
flat out.
No.
It'd be very noisy.
Yeah.
And also we need to, the fans in the machine need some headroom to speed up when the filters start to clog up. Because the fans will try and maintain that airflow
Regardless of the
regardless
filters.
of the filters. So as the filters start to clog up, the fans will speed up.
And does it give you a warning when the filters need changing?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's not based on the state of the filter.
It's based on time. Okay, so you can still make a decision whether you want to.
So those are airflows. Imbalance is a commissioning setting. It allows me to put the fans slightly out of balance with each other if I wanted to.
Yep.
And I have done to a small degree on certain moment. Fixed imbalance. I think that allows you to. If we thought the fans were underperforming, I can compensate using that. I haven't had to. Offset flow inlet and offset flow exhaust. The inlet is 0 and the exhaust is minus 3.7%. So when I've been commissioning it, I wanted to get the two fans in balance with each other. They were slightly out of balance, so I've had to just drop the extract fan speed by 3.7% to get them in balance.
Okay.
I work on the assumption that my £1,500 meter, annually calibrated,
Yeah.
is more accurate than the £20 pressure sensors inside the machine that tell the machine what to do.
Okay.
I work on the assumption that I'm right and the machine's wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So back on that. Default position switch, I can't remember what that is without looking in the manual. But it's set to its default setting of 1. Operation bypass valve. So I've now put it to automatic. I think did you?
I put it on open, yeah,
Open,
just 'cause
yeah.
it's so hot.
Yeah.
But
Um,
auto makes sense.
I'd leave it on auto.
Yeah,
The machine will decide when to go into bypass.
by the temperatures.
By the temperatures. It won't go into bypass if it is warmer outside than it is inside, because that would just be making the situation worse.
Yeah.
We're bringing air into the house that's warmer than the air that's currently in the house.
But won't it be doing that anyway, regardless of whether the bypass is on?
No, in automatic mode,
Yeah.
it won't go into bypass mode unless it is cooler outside.
Okay.
It always has to be cooler outside than inside.
And if it's not, so what will happen? It won't bring
It
fresh
won't.
air in.
It'll carry on bringing fresh air in.
Yeah.
It'll be going through the heat exchanger. So it'll be still recovering. When it's cold,
Does it recover the other way then? It takes heat out of the
it can,
intake.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the heat exchanger works both ways.
Oh, didn't
All it
realise
is
that.
is really just two huge bunches of straws. One bunch with airflow going one way, one bunch with airflow going the other way,
Okay.
and the heat's transferred from one side
Okay.
of the straw system to the other side.
Okay.
So it will work both ways. So if it was warmer outside, the outgoing air will be trying to cool down the incoming air.
Yes.
And there'd have to be probably quite a big temperature difference
Yeah.
for that to be noticeable.
Yeah.
And in theory,
Yeah.
it is trying to cool the incoming air down slightly.
Okay.
But really, the bypass is, as mentioned before, is there to not make the situation any worse if you're getting too warm.
Yeah.
So it's
So it would have been better to be on auto last week, the being hot. open.
Yes, yeah, because it could have been, it was warmer outside.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been better on auto.
Okay.
So we'll bring
That's
the
good to
warm
know.
air.
I was thinking it would be better on open.
But I
Understand.
wouldn't worry about it too much because
No, small differences.
we're talking about 1 or 2 degrees.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't notice that
Okay.
inside the house. So the bypass is really there to stop heat recovery if you're getting too warm.
Okay.
Bypass temperature, so I set it to 23 degrees. You may want to alter that. So what that means is if the average internal house temperature starts to creep above 23 and it is cooler outside, it'll go into bypass mode. And you might be thinking 23 is a bit higher, you might want it lower than that, and you can put it a little bit lower than that if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend you have it much lower than that in winter, because what we don't want to happen is with your heating system trying to heat the house up,
Yeah.
and the ventilation system thinking that we're getting too warm now, I'm going to start dumping the heat.
Okay.
So you don't want the two systems fighting each other. So what heating...
Also, that's registering at the top of every room, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's the machine thinks that your average house temperature is actually the average of all of your extract rooms, because the temperature sensor is on the
So if you have one cool room,
extract side of the
unheated
machine.
room,
Yeah. So if you
got a spare bedroom that's unheated, might cool down the average temperature.
So it's that possibly wouldn't, but if you, well, for example, here you could get quite warm up here.
Yeah,
So the extract air from the kitchen could be, say, 25 degrees. The extract air temperature from your bathroom, toilet and utility, which don't have any south-facing windows, could be 21 degrees.
yeah,
So the air going into
average.
the machine is going to be the average of those. So,
That
so
makes
it might
sense.
be 25 up here,
yeah.
but the average going to the machine might be 22, 23 if your other extract rooms are much cooler. Or if you've got a window open somewhere. What heating have you got in the house?
Underfloor, just downstairs.
Okay, and what are you likely to set your thermostats to in winter?
21.
So your heating system is going to be trying to heat up to 21.
Yeah,
Bearing in mind that on top of that you might get some incidental heat gains from cooking, fridges, TVs,
yeah. Wood
Bod-
stove.
bodies,
Yeah,
wood stove.
not sure we'll need to use that, but
On
a very cold
so you
day.
could easily be creeping up above 23 degrees
Yeah.
in winter. But if you've got a wood stove lit,
yeah, we'll do. Yeah,
so what will happen then, as soon as that goes above 23,
yeah.
ventilation will start dumping the heat to outside.
Okay,
So,
which is fair enough if you're
well, if you're going above,
above
23,
that,
you
you-
might want that.
a bit uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so that was the bypass temperature. Bypass temperature atmosphere is set at 10 degrees. So what that setting is, if for example we crept above 23 degrees in the middle of winter
Mm-hmm.
and it was less than 10 degrees outside, it wouldn't actually go into bypass. So if you had your stove lit, because it was really cold, the machine wouldn't necessarily go into bypass, because if it did, it would be bringing very cold air into the house, and if you were anywhere near a supply air valve,
condensation.
you would then feel it cold.
Yeah,
draft.
cold draft. Okay.
So the bypass, it does have a lower threshold as well.
Okay.
That's clever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
So,
makes sense.
so it drops below 10 outside, even if you were 30 degrees in here, it wouldn't go into bypass state.
Right. But then if we do become hideously hot, we
Open your windows.
yeah,
Got a big window.
just open that and
That's
shut
a
it
proper
again. That'll
heat dump.
That, dump all the heat in a second.
In it, any house like this, a passive house, we always assume that if you're going to get too hot, then the only way to ventilate the house is what we refer to as purge ventilation. In other words, you open doors and windows.
Yeah.
A couple of windows downstairs, and your doors upstairs get a natural
Yeah, yeah.
airflow
The
through
front,
house.
find the front door and that window is just a
Yeah.
really nice
Yes, yeah.
through.
And that will be far more effective at cooling the house down than the ventilation will be.
Okay, makes sense.
So even if you do that, leave this running. So
Yep.
this should now be running 365 days a year.
Yeah.
The
Then we
only
turn it
time, the only time you turn it off now is when
Leap years.
changing the filters.
Leap years. Wrong answer.
Sorry. 29th February, you're not allowed.
Yeah,
Smart. There's always a smart aleck.
that's 366 days. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, what else have we got in here? Hysteresis.
What's
Right,
that
do we
mean?
know what that is?
No?
It's 1 degrees. Right. Hysteresis is something you have on this machine and more commonly on thermostats, temperature thermostats. So we set it to operate at 23 degrees. So it'll kick in at 23. So we don't want it to switch. If it switched off again at 23 degrees, the machine could be cycling on and off. So not the machine, the bypass mechanism.
Okay, so
Could be opening and closing on quite a regular basis.
so it's like a
Yeah,
1
at
degree leeway.
22.9 and at
Yeah,
23.
so the hysteresis is the difference between on and off.
Okay.
So it'll operate at 23, and and then it'll carry on operating, I think, until it drops down to 22.
2. Okay, that
And
makes sense.
So you've got that 1 degree.
That's recommended
Different.
1 degree. Is this standard 2 there?
It was at 2,
Yeah.
but it was also at 25 degrees internal
Okay.
temperature. So I've dropped it down to 23, and because I've dropped it down to 23, I've changed that to 1.
Okay.
Depends how warm you like your house. You know.
21's normal, isn't it? I think that sounds right to me.
21 is the old-fashioned 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is generally seen as a comfortable temperature.
I think so, yeah. You'd have it less probably. I'd have it
Most
more.
men want it less, most women want it higher.
Yeah, the age old.
Your grandparents will want it up to about 27.
Yeah. Not quite there yet.
Back out of that. And I think all the rest of it isn't really relevant. Frost start temperature. The machine has got a little heater inside it that will turn on if it drops below freezing outside.
Okay.
And its sole purpose is to stop the heat exchanger freezing up in winter.
Okay. Oh,
It's not going to put any heat into the house. It's just going to lift the incoming air temperature from -2 or whatever it is back up to freezing, just to protect the machine.
yeah. And do you foresee any problems that our exhaust and inlet is so close to the air source heat pump? And you can get very cold temperatures, can't you, around an air source heat pump?
When you say very close, how close?
You can see if you look out the window, you can see it's. I mean, it seemed convenient for us, but
If it is, it's a bit late to panic.
yeah, I was
I'm
going to
brutally
say there's
honest.
nothing we can do about it, but I don't know whether.
I'll gross to one side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a wind tunnel, though. To be fair, the wind whistles down.
Yeah.
the side.
Yeah.
So that's giving our.
Because sometimes you get, it's opposite of a fridge, isn't it? It's taking hot air out and gives off
That should
cold
be blowing
air.
cold air out all the time. The air source heat pump.
It should be good in
Cool.
summer, but
Yeah.
But in the
Right.
summer, it's not going to be on, is it?
no. The air source heat pump. Well, it will for hot water.
But that's for minutes.
Yeah.
Not enough to make a difference.
It's in the winter.
It'll be running flat out, and the air coming out of it will be cooler than the air going into it.
Is it likely to be below freezing?
No, hopefully not. So that frost protection might be kicking in then.
Well, it might.
We pause. We bring it.
Right. Filter days. So I set it, at the moment I set it to prompt you after 90 days, which isn't very much. And the reason for that is you're still going to have a dusty house.
Yeah,
And
all the
there's still got
plaster.
work going on. Looks like you've still got some joinery to do and plastering. Plasterers will make a hell of a lot of dust.
Yeah, tell me
I
about
think
it.
if you've got a joiner in the house cutting wood up, plaster, mixing plaster, turn this off.
Okay, just until that's
Just
passed.
turn it off for the day when they've gone at 5 o'clock.
So
turn it
hoover
back
up
on
and
again.
then turn it back
You
on.
can
Yeah.
run it all night, so it's still running for 2/3 of the day.
Yeah.
But if they're making a lot of dust, turn it off because that
Okay.
it'll get sucked into the system, it'll clog your filters up twice as quick. So I set it for 90 days at the moment. It's just counting down from there. So after 90 days, you'll get a filter message on here telling you to change the filters.
And then just check them and see
Yeah.
if they're.
So I would leave it at 90 days until the house is finished internally. And then if you want, you can, well, you'll see the state of the filters.
Yeah.
You can go all the way up to
365.
yeah, actually on this one.
Yeah.
That is way too much. I haven't come across a house yet where the filters will last a full year.
Mm.
Really, realistically, the maximum I would expect you to go up to is 180. 6
Okay.
months.
And how much are filters?
I'm not sure online.
Okay.
Probably about 20 odd pounds.
Okay.
Something
Not too
of that
bad.
order. The one in the kitchen you can wash.
Perfect.
If it's just building dust, we'll try the filters in a moment, you may be able to brush them down and it'll just drop out of the filters. But once the filters
Hoover
have got a little damp, and the intake one will get damp if it's really foggy outside, 'cause it's sucking very humid air in. Once they get damp, the dust will stick to them and it's harder to clean them.
Okay.
The one on the extract side, at the moment it'll just be dry building dust, which will come out fairly easily. Once everything's settled down and you've been showering and cooking, then it'll be, even that might get a little bit moist if someone's had a long shower. The dust will stick to it and it's harder to get out of the filter. So I think probably for the first year or so, leave it at 90. You don't have to change the filters, and you can always push them down and put them back in again.
Okay. It's just an alarm. Yeah.
You want to be looking at them at least every 3 months, and maybe even less, you know, if you've got work going on. And don't forget, if it's really dusty outside,
Like the harvest time and
the intake filter will get clogged up with dust and beetles and thistle seeds and God knows what else.
I'm excited to have a look.
Can they be recycled at all, or are they just?
Not as I'm aware of, 'cause it's like a fleecy, plasticky material. You could try and wash them, but the word of caution there is if they're damaged at all, you know, only a little
Pinprick,
hole,
it's going to get,
because any little hole in the filters will allow air through, and as the filters start to get dusty, the air will find the easiest path through, and it'll take dust through even a small hole.
Clog up the machine.
And it'll get to the heat exchanger, which is much harder to clean.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, it's impossible to clean it really.
How long do these machines last?
How long's a piece of string really?
Yeah. You've got yours 30 years later?
I replaced mine when I joined the Green Building Store, so my machine been running for 22 years.
And you replaced it because of new efficient ones out on the market?
I replaced it because probably after only about 8 to 10 years, they stopped making the machine and they stopped making the filters, so I was having to make my own filters.
Oh, right.
Not very successfully, as it turned out. Dust had got through them.
Yeah.
And after 20 odd years, the heat exchanger was not clogged up with dust, but it had dust inside it, and so it wasn't running very efficiently.
Okay.
And it was never a very efficient unit in the first place.
Yeah, you had one of the early models, I guess, 30 years
mine
ago.
was manufactured by a company called Creeder, as in Creeder cookers, Creeder washing machines.
Yeah.
Creeder at the time thought it was going to be an up-and-coming market, so they actually designed and manufactured their own machine, which was about half the price of the Scandinavian machines, but it was never a very efficient machine. The one I've got now is it's not a Zender or a Brink machine, it's a Paul machine.
Yeah.
The only reason I installed that one was it was the only one that would go in the space I had
Fit in the
available.
space, yeah. I think this is like 81%, isn't it? Recovery, heat recovery.
I think it's a little bit higher than that. No, I think this one.
Is it
It's
higher?
in the low 90s, I think this
Oh,
one.
maybe.
Yeah.
Great.
So this is far more efficient than my old one.
Okay.
Right, so after 12 months, just, you know, if the filters don't look too bad after 90 days, then just, you know, add another month on or something.
Okay.
See how it goes.
Yeah.
It's your choice. It's a trade-off between the cost of the filters and the cost of the energy to run the fans.
Okay.
As the filters clog up, the fans will have to work harder and harder.
Yeah.
And also there's the noise factor as well. If fans are having to work harder, they'll be noisier. So if you ever think the machine is much noisier than it used to be,
Check the
first thing
filters.
to do is check the filters and that one there. I think that's about it really. There are lots of other settings in there, most of which are not relevant to you.
Because you can have like humidity sensors, can't you, in the bathroom and stuff that
You can.
don't advise that?
We don't generally specify them. 2 reasons. Firstly, you probably won't need them anyway. But secondly, they're not very successful at doing what you expect them to do. Because the natural humidity level in the house will follow the outside humidity levels to a large degree.
Yeah.
The relative humidity inside the house can be anywhere from 40% to 80-90%. A few days ago, when it was really warm and humid,
Yeah.
I think it got up to about 80% outside, didn't it?
Well, that's the end of the boost function.
I was thinking that, yeah.
11:22, yeah, half an hour.
Yeah. So if you have a traditional humidistat in a bathroom, what do you set it to? You know, in summer, for it to pick up a shower in summer, you have to set it quite high, because the natural levels are quite high.
Yeah.
But then in winter, and the air in the house is much drier, even when you have a shower, it might not be enough to raise it to the...
So you'd constantly have to play with the setting
Yeah.
to get it to function.
Yeah. I know from my own experience, I installed a bathroom extractor fan that had a humidity stat built into it.
Yeah.
And it never did what I expected.
Okay. Yeah.
Didn't
And if
oper-
this is running,
Didn't operate when I wanted it to do, and then in summer it would operate for no apparent reason. And in the end I just disabled it.
okay. Okay.
But you
Good to know.
shouldn't need them.
No.
Mm.
Okay. So the only other thing we need to know is why is it boosting at 5 o'clock?
I think it was under the program button.
Mm-hmm.
That program button. It said it comes up on P1, doesn't it? Week. So that P1 week must be a preset. Start time 7.
You need to write all these down, do you?
So it says there, look, 8 till 5.
Yeah, sorry.
8 till 5. I don't know why. So 8 till 5 it does 2, and then at 5
Right.
till 10 it
Sorry.
seems to.
So it does look like it's got pre-programmed,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So it looks like you can...
Which I guess is okay. If it just boosts in the evening, I mean, that probably suits us. It's when you're cooking and. Don't know.
How do you deactivate it?
Deactivate it, yeah. It's got activate program. It's maybe P3 days and just as standard on every day. What's it say for Monday? Oh, I see you have to. Oh, we'll work it out. But yeah, you kind of just want it on the manual.
Hmm.